want to remind you, where'd you go, Mike? Oh, there you are. Please go ahead and start recording. Just let everybody know we are going to record this. Everybody okay with it? Wave at me or whatever. We just, from a privacy standpoint, probably it's always good just let you know we're about to record. So we are now recording. This will be available later. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get started. We have a good bit of to cover today, and I don't think it would hurt anybody's feelings if we were to decide that or to finish a little early. So give you a little bit of housekeeping. Again, good morning. This is our second town hall, and we are excited that we are at least where we are right now in the world. I'm Chuck, and I'm going to serve as moderator, introducing folks and kind of going from one thing to the other. Before we get started, Mike, did you, if you are not already muted, please mute. Mike, I don't know if you're going to mute us all and then unmute as we speak, or if you want us to just mute each other individually.
I will do that once you're finished, but if I were to do that now, we'd lose your audio. So I'm going to let you continue, and it looks like everybody is muting themselves. So thank you very much for that. And if it doesn't happen, I'll go back in and do that.
If necessary, then we will go on.
Sure.
And Mike can mute us. We have an agreement that we just talked about between Mike, Dave, and me about if one of us freezes, the other's just going to jump right in. So give us a little bit of grace as we go on that. During the session, if you want to ask questions, if you have a question you want to ask, the best way to do that during the time that we're speaking is to go down to the chat function. That will be a speech bubble, and type your question in. We will be watching it during the presentations. At the end of the presentations, we will have gathered those, compiled them, and we're going to allow around 15 minutes at the end of the session again to answer questions and then take live questions. Also, if you see that little word that says view and it has a little grid beside it, if you haven't already, if you will go to that and click on gallery, you'll see more people. And if you don't want to see more people, that's fine. Okay, so let's get started. I think that's all the housekeeping we need to do. Pastor Lynn, would you open us up in a word of prayer, please?
I'd be happy to. Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for the ministry of our church, the gift of our fellowship, and for our lives in you. And so we ask, God, that you would bless this wonderful time that we have together today, and that you would guide our conversation. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Let's turn to the purpose of Town Hall. Mike, what are we going to talk about? Where are we today in Orange County, and what's our strategy as a church?
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. And my big thanks and welcome to all of you for giving us some time today. We had such a wonderful opportunity July 12th, which was when we had our last town hall meeting, to not only present to you information, but also to get a feel for what was on your mind, which is probably more important in the grand scheme of things than things that we might have to share with you. So we're going to take that approach today. We've got some information that we have put together we want to share with you, but we want to make sure that we allow enough time to hear what's on your mind and take your questions as we wrap up. So first of all, I have the pleasure of introducing and reintroducing you to you some fabulous individuals who agreed to give their time and energy and resources to helping us figure out what we're calling a regathering plan. And we've talked about that, and many of you have seen the plan document. It is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of information on that plan. Know that that plan has been submitted to our district and conference for approval. We received back just a few questions, clarifying questions they had. We've resubmitted that, and we're pending right now receipt, we hope, of an approval, or if they need additional information, we're certainly happy to do that. But a lot of what this group has been doing is really getting us prepared for that, and certainly prepared for regathering and relaunching. So I want to recognize those individuals first, and then we will get at it. So first, Dave Dumey, who chairs and is responsible for our trustees group. has been invaluable in terms of helping us with property issue, just in general issues, but in particular his discipline around the church, being around our property and activities there. Dawn Molt, who is our lay leader, she is of course our official representative for all of you and others that are part of our church, and Dawn does a fabulous job speaking on your behalf, and so we really appreciate Dawn's involvement. Chuck Rice, who you've heard from, Chuck chairs our treasurer finance team and does a fabulous job with that, and again has been invaluable in terms of his assistance, not only that he brings from his corporate role with Chick-fil-A, but also his passion and love for the church and things that we do. So Chuck, we appreciate your help very much. Supriya Christopher. Supriya is responsible for and helps us with communication. So she helps us say the things we want to say and write the things we want to write. Supriya recently agreed to take on the role of our communications coordinator for the church. It's a non-paid volunteer position, but a position that we have had our eye on for some time and is so sorely needed in every organization as we strive to communicate better. So Supriya, thank you for all of your valuable input. We couldn't do it without Kat Wallace. Kat is our official representative from the medical world. As you know, Kat has a background in healthcare, and she has just been wonderful in helping to guide us through the myriad of issues relative to health and protection, things that we need to be doing to make sure that we are protecting all of you and others that come into the church for any reason. And then, of course, certainly last but not least, Pastor Lynn, who has provided, I think, invaluable insight and direction for us, passion and love for this church and for all of you, and has kept that front of mind when it might have been easier to kind of gone a different direction. Let us said, no, we're going to look out for our people and we're going to do what's right for our church. So Lynn, thank you for that. The other folks that I want to mention, we of course, because of some of the complexities of building the plan, needed to put a little subgroup together. And it's the Dan, Dennis, and Don troop. And so I want to recognize them. This has been our subcommittee, our trustees subcommittee for regathering, as we kind of labeled them. Dan Guerra has been leading the charge on that. So Dan, thank you for that. Dennis Napier and Don Anderson have been assisting with that. So as you can see, it takes quite a few people to kind of work on these things. And the good news is of course, we're continuing to move forward, and you're going to hear more about that as we go through the rest of this morning. You're going to hear also some information about our ministry plans for 2021. We want to share with you kind of the vision that has been discussed, and Pastor Lynn's got some great information that she'll be sharing with you regarding some of our strategic initiatives for 2021. So it seemed like an appropriate segue for us after we get you the information we want to get you on kind of where we are and our plans moving forward for the remainder of the year. We want to share with you some exciting plans. We think they're exciting plans on our 2021 ministry plan. All right, so Chuck, that's it for me. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Quite an overview. Thank you so much. Let's turn now to Pastor Lynn. Pastor, tell us a little bit about the situation from the larger Methodist Church, from CalPAC. Anything else you have to share with us?
Yes, as I mentioned our last town hall, and I think I've mentioned in a few of my updates in the e-breeze, our bishop is giving us weekly updates, or was giving us weekly updates. He's sort of switched now. I think they're coming about every other week, unless there's something really important and new that comes up. One of the fantastic things that has changed since Orange County went from purple to red is that the bishop is now, and our district superintendents are now receiving regathering plans from churches again. So there's a very detailed document that we have to respond to create a regathering plan, which we have mentioned before. That plan was completed a number of weeks ago and submitted. We got a response back, made the appropriate changes, and have submitted again. So we're just waiting, as Mike has talked about, we're waiting on that getting its final approval. Most other United Methodist churches are regathering outdoors in Orange County. Uh, if they are regathering at all, they are regathering outdoors. Let me put it that way. Actually, most of the Methodist churches in Orange County have not been regathering yet, but they are doing online worship as we are as well. We are watching, and we've been asked by our bishop, tasked to watch what our local governments are doing, and also what our county and state governments are doing. And we are watching Orange County closely. We saw this morning that Los Angeles County has had an uptick, and then they've had an uptick in cases and unfortunately in deaths in the past 4 days. Orange County is holding steady on both cases and deaths, but our positive rate is still over 2%, which is what is needed for us to go to a lower tier. So we are at 3.2% positive right now in Orange County. So that's what we're watching. And we're also watching what the other churches that are doing regathering. If our county and our city is seeing an uptick because of other churches regathering, or I hear from other pastors in Laguna Beach or in South Orange County that they are seeing more cases in their congregations, those are the kind of things that I'm listening for so that we can take the appropriate next steps. So even though we won't be gathering outdoors for worship right now because we have not found a feasible way to make that safe for everyone because our property is fairly small, I do have exciting news in that Messy Church is going to begin again at the end of October. So we will have outdoor Messy Church. We will not have a meal because that is something we can't share right now. But we have a way to keep each household, and this is the other thing, each household will be doing Messy Church separately. So they'll be moving from one station to the next as a household. So there will not be group activities that will, put us together with other households. And we feel that's the best way to keep people safe. But our Messy Church is October 25th. And you'll hear more from Barbara Crowley very soon on that. That's what I have.
Thank you, Lynn. Before we move on, I want to remind you again, and I just sent everybody a chat reminder. If you have a question during this, please feel free to type it into the chat. If you don't see the chat or you want to ask it live later, there will still be opportunity to ask questions live later. But if you type it into the chat, we can consolidate similar ones and make sure that we cover it immediately. So Mike, you've kind of given us the reason we're here. Then you've kind of given us an overview of the larger Methodist Church and what's going on a little bit more in Orange County. It's been a lot of work, as Mike has said earlier, to get to the point even that we are now. Unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't show. It's just, so much background work, so many forms to fill out, so many things to do to ensure that we are doing the absolute best we can to regather safely. Big, huge point. As a result, we came up with a decision matrix for the church on our church regathering. And Mike mentioned earlier a lot of the work that trustees have been doing. So let's turn to Dave. And Dave, I know safety is always number one priority. Would you tell us a little bit about the trustees' role and what you've been doing in the church during this time?
You're on mute.
Thank you, Lynn. I thought we had Mike controlling us, but I think I shut myself off. Anyway, thanks. A lot of things going on. As Mike mentioned, we have a subcommittee that has been established. And so as we're moving forward, everything has really been focused on what's in the best interest in the safety of our congregation. And frankly, how well is the church being maintained and ready for us when we all get a chance to come back. We've had a little bit of a test, and I want to thank Kat Wallace as she's kind of gone through the flu shots for the last couple weeks. And if any of you have been down there for that, you could see that we had things set up. So we're looking to ensure we have the 6 foot of separation pathways that are going to be clearly marked out and identified, and some other improvements. And I'm going to combine a little bit, Chuck, of what I'm going to talk about in this section as well as the subsection underneath it, and kind of combine the two and move through. The subcommittee of the trustees, which is Dan, Dennis, and Don, they're going to be installing some new locks on the restrooms upstairs. They're going to be specifically guidelining to make sure that we only have a single access and use of the restrooms for both the men and the women. There'll be special locks that will be installed. And I don't know if that's been done yet. Dan, you can give me a thumbs up if it has, or it's going to be this week. So I don't see a thumbs up. That's what we do in the education. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And the other thing that Dan and the subcommittee have done, and they've shared that with our task force, is signage. So we're going to have signage prepared and available and up and running. And we're pleased to have that taken care of. The church has been cleaned. We're maintaining the facility as if we were there today. So lots of good things going on in the area of what we're doing to ensure the safety of our congregation, and ensuring that when we do get back, we all are very comfortable with that and following the parameters of our local, state, and bishop guidelines.
So Dave, when we get back, should we see things on the floor to tell us how far apart we are? You mentioned the door locks, there's additional signage.
We will.
Excellent.
Yeah, those things are being taken care of. And as I said, our subcommittee of trustees have been a part of that, as well as our task force. So those things are being done. You might see some other small improvements around the church. We're doing some repair work at the church and the parking lot.
So if I can just add quickly to that, I'm picking up all of the signs and banners of welcome back and cautionary, including floor, including everything from how to enter, where to enter, can't enter from down below. All of those signs, I'm picking them up Monday, and I already have the locks. So everything will be available in terms of very attractive signs with our name and logo on them also will be available and done this week, midweek.
Perfect. Any other questions from anyone, or Chuck or Lynn?
Well, thank you, Lynn. I'm going to pass this to Lynn for any follow-up comments on that. But as you can see, and the one thing that's so encouraging to me out of what Dave, you and Dan said is the work that the three of you have been doing, because we are moving forward. We are doing our best to be able to figure out how to do this thing and get us all back together as quickly as we safely can. We're doing it based on what we know. And I can't wait to see all these signs and floor markers and all that. That's going to be pretty cool. Lynn, do you have anything else to add to that section of it?
I do, just a little bit. First of all, I just want to add my gratitude and thanks again for the really hard work of trustees. Dave is an excellent leader of our trustees, as you all know, and has done a great job putting Dan and Dennis and Don together on some of these tasks that are more detailed and require being on property. And I, just want to thank them for the many times that they've come down and measured things and checked things out to make sure we can do everything in the safest manner. We also have, and I just want to be really clear, we have a sign-in form, a sign-in book that everyone must sign when they come on campus. We do have a written policy for gathering on campus. So, our UMW is already doing some small meetings or service project oriented groups on campus a couple times, and they've been given our policy. So as groups begin to have permission to regather on the campus, everyone will get our policy and our guidelines and the things that they need to follow in order to meet on our campus. Some of our groups will be coming back very soon. I mentioned Messy Church, AA will be coming back within the next couple of weeks. And as I said, UMW is already doing some of that. And I believe are making plans for a little bit larger event, still a small event, but something in December. We're still at those guidelines of 25% capacity in any of the groups that we meet in. So we want people to know that's the limit the state guidelines provide for. And we're going to be watching that for a couple months, like I said, and see how those smaller gatherings go to make sure there's not an uptick before we consider gathering together in our building, in our sanctuary for worship. And just want to reiterate again, our online presence is still there. As you saw our worship service this morning, we're taping from the sanctuary, at least part of our services now. And Dave and our cleaning crew and Valerie, who also assists in that on site, are making sure everything's sanitized so that when Neil and Katerina and myself and others come into the property, that it is safe to be here. And then before we leave, we have to wipe everything down that we've touched with bleach wipes and make sure everything's sanitized before we go. So I just want you to be aware there's very specific policies in place and guidelines so that if anyone is planning to come on campus, you just need to be aware of what those are and we can make those available to everyone. That's all I have.
Thank you, Pastor. Kat, let's talk a little bit more about those, if you would, please. You got a lot of stuff going on from a health perspective.
Yes, actually, everything that was covered, it's wonderful, all the sign in, but also when you come to the church, all these little small groups, we're going to be taking your temperature. If you came in on one of the last 2 Saturdays for our flu clinic, you had to sign in, we took your temperature, we asked you, there's questions you need to answer regarding COVID-19, 4 or 5 questions before you can sign in. So we appreciate that. And I know Dan mentioned it's going to be a one-way flow of everyone. So there's no crossing of people in and out of the doors. You go in one door, you go out the other. The restrooms. So, we've talked about the fact that we're still in the red tier, the orange tier, when we're able to drop down to that in the county, that allows for like a 50% capacity in facilities. But I don't know if y'all have seen some of the signs around town, mask up to open up OC. There's a video on YouTube. All the mayors of Orange County got together and did a video on the importance of wearing a mask so we can open up the county again. So go on YouTube and look up mask up to open up OC. But also I just, speaking of which, besides everything else, we will be wearing masks in service, whether we're outside or inside, you'll definitely be wearing a mask. And just remember to wash your hands. I could go through everything you guys already know. Wash your hands, sanitize. So the flu clinic, we gave 40 shots in the flu clinic. I was very happy for that because I was so worried. Some of you already told me you had gone and gotten your flu shots, with the doctor or the pharmacy or something like that. So if you haven't gotten your flu shot, please do so. If anytime we ever needed the flu shot, this year is super important. I could go on and talk more about that, but I think you all get the picture. Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Kat. I have a quick question for you. When Orange County goes back into the orange, and we can go back up to 50%, we still have to do the masks and we still have to maintain social distancing of 6 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, it's all going to stay the same. It's just that more people can come in if we have the capacity to keep them all separated. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was actually kind of the point that was going for too, because the in any given space, 6-foot radius might actually be more stringent than the number of people based on this percentage.
Right, we are definitely limited to our space.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Mike and Pastor Lynn, we've had a lot of good things going on this year. We all feel good. The strategic team on regathering feels good. I think about what has been going on this year. Mike, if you'll kind of fill us in a little bit about where we are in 2020, and then Pastor, we'll look to you for a strategic vision for 2021.
Good, thank you, Chuck. It seemed only appropriate that we share with you a little bit of information, just general information around the church and our plans going into 2021 as we gathered today for this meeting. So the first thing that I wanted to do is just very quickly give you a snapshot of the financial condition of the church. And I think it's safe to say, certainly from my perspective, and I don't think anybody would argue with me, we have been so very proud and so very thankful for the individuals who have continued their giving, for the individuals that have helped us sort through areas where we could tighten the belt on expenses. Both of those had to be issues, as you might imagine, as we started this journey mid-March. And I'm just so very proud to report to you that we're holding our own in a wonderful way. We have had our usual little ups and downs, which we always have, by the way. If you go back historically, you'll see that as part of our church's financials in terms of the giving in particular. But the good news is that we really have held our own on that, and coupled with good expense control, we're right now forecasting, and it's just a forecast at this point, but looking at our September preliminary numbers, we're forecasting to be about where we thought we were going to be under usual circumstances when we entered the year. So pre-COVID, if you will, versus post-COVID. So I think y'all need to really take a bow on that one and to share in the joy on that. And we would expect that trend to continue through the year. We're going to continue to be very watchful as we continue to move through the year. The other good news that I think is worthy of mention is that we have not, through any of this, had to tap into any of our reserve balances. And that was something, frankly, that we prepared for back in March and April when we started having these discussions. We thought, gee, if we need to have those reserves in an account that was ready for us to be able to use. And I am so thrilled to say we haven't had to do that. And that, again, is testament to the strength, I think, and the love and passion that folks have for the church. So I wanted to just share briefly with you that information. The other thing that I think has been truly remarkable, and we've heard this from our bishop right on down, that the church never closed. Church didn't close. We just changed the way we did things. We just looked at new and creative ways to continue to strengthen and grow our ministries. And so I want to share with you just a couple of things that I think are just really important that we keep out there in our mindset. First of those that we did is we established a care team. Debbie Guerra really played a critical role in getting a care team established to where we were doing and are still doing weekly check-ins with our folks, just to make sure everything is okay. If there's anything that you need, we're here for you. And we have had a variety of opportunities to assist along the way. And so Debbie and the care team members, I know many of you are on that team. Thank you so very much for stepping up and doing that. As kind of an adjunct to that, what we're calling the helper team. So we realized that not everybody just immediately was drawn to the technology that we were going to be using. Not everybody was a seasoned Zoom user, and not everybody was a seasoned user of some of the other technology that we have used in terms of providing our worship services and Bible study groups, etc. So we had a helper team, a tech support team, if you will, people like Megan and Alec and Slade Carlton and others that would go out and help folks. I know we caught Daniel Thompson over at Monica Gunning's house last week, helping her get on so that she could attend our Sunday fellowship. So the church, as we would expect, responded with love, responded with care and helpfulness. We also had the Mother's Day flowers we delivered, of course, and the communion delivery. So a lot of opportunity there to help one another out. In total, this church raised a little over $7,000 for charity events through the course of the last several months. As you know, one of the big challenges that our county faced and other areas faced was the availability of food for individuals that had lost their jobs, or perhaps their jobs had now gone from 40 hours to 30 or 20, or all of a sudden as we often use the term, unemployed or underemployed. So we stepped up and we said, you know what, we can help with that. And so we raised money through our Fast for Food program. We also coordinated a grant through the United Methodist Church Justice Grant that allowed us to give close to $5,000 to the Laguna Food Pantry to help offset the cost of food and meals. And you know, you could do some simple math and know that that impacted thousands of lives. And so we're so very proud of that. The Urban Kids fundraiser, some of you contributed, and we thank you very much for the Urban Kids fundraiser so that kids could go to camp, those inner city at-risk youth that might otherwise not be able to go and have a camping experience. We stepped up and did that. The United Methodist Women stepped up and continued their work on the clothing drive with working wardrobes. We also have, you're going to be hearing in a few minutes, the new United Methodist Women Marketplace that will continue their missions fundraising for the year. And we have also a grant in motion for the MOPS program to bring some educational activities into the church that we can help coordinate. And we're also doing, in the interest of looking at things differently that I mentioned before, we have a wonderful All Saints celebration plan that Lynn's going to share a little bit of information about in a few minutes. So the message here is, you're right, the church didn't close. The church just got busy and figured out different ways to do things and to be of a tremendous value in our communities. And that's one of the things that we want to continue. So looking into 2021, the Church Council has had 3 separate discussions on this, and we've engaged some other folks in discussion around kind of what we should be doing as we head into 2021. And one of the things that we agreed upon is that we need to hang on to the strategic initiatives that we've had. So if you've got something, a piece of paper or a pen there handy, if you don't, it's okay. But I'd love for you to write these down. The first one is deepen connections. Deepen connections. The second one is grow our spirituality. Grow our spirituality. And the third one is strengthen our reach. And those 3 strategic initiatives are going to continue to drive our actions and our plans and what we accomplish for next year. Lynn, I'm going to flip it to you now to talk a little bit more about what all of that might mean.
Before we go there, Mike, let me mention one thing. You mentioned some really impressive numbers as far as the church giving and keeping up, all of us keeping up our contributions to the church and doing what we had to do to make a balanced budget for the church and all the other stuff we've done with the community. All of that has been done. Even though we were given a few months ago the opportunity to cut our apportionment giving, we have continued doing that with 100% apportionment giving to the church, to the greater church, because we felt like that was still even growing our reach beyond even the walls of the church. So we have continued 100% of our apportionment giving. Just want to let everybody know that.
Yeah, thank you. Good reminder.
Thank you
And
for that.
what was the third? I'm putting this in chat. What was the third?
Strengthen our reach.
Thank you.
Pastor?
Deepen our connections, grow our spirituality, and strengthen our reach.
Very good.
I did want to mention something about apportionments. It really is quite a feat. When we had an easy out, our district superintendent and our bishop said that 75% of apportionments would be counted as 100% during the pandemic isolation period. And our leadership said no, that we want to stay with our commitment of 100%. And I just applaud all of our leadership for that incredible generosity and commitment. Very few would step up and say, we'll give what we know we should, when we could have had an easy out. And it's just a beautiful thing. And it's because all of you have kept up your giving and even gone beyond your normal giving and given more, that we are able to stay with that commitment. The thing I want you to know about apportionments is our Western jurisdiction and our California Pacific Conference are still reserving funds that would go to support ministries that do not support the full inclusion of the LGBTQ community. So I do want you to know we are giving 100%, but some of those funds are held in reserve as they are not going to support ministries that are behind the traditional plan. So we have, we're remaining true as a conference to our commitment to full inclusion of the LGBTQ community. So I want you to know that. In regard to our church and our plans for 2021, I am just really excited about the things that we're planning for. As we've said many times, church hasn't stopped, and we are continuing to reimagine, God, what are you calling us to as a church and as your people in these times? And the church is still growing. We added 2 new members, a new family to our church this week. We had a baptism this week. We have classes and other online groups that are new that are happening. And so we're continuing to grow our ministry. The UMW are doing new and creative things to grow ministry in our area and to care for people even during this pandemic. And so we're continuing to listen for God's lead, to listen for God's voice, and to continue planning forward. And so I'm excited about 2021. We are planning 3 pathways of worship. And what that looks like is we will eventually, whatever forms that takes, we will be gathering for worship on our campus again. And we're starting with Messy Church because that's the easiest one to keep people safe. So that, as I said, is beginning. So we've got Messy Church. Technically, we've got 4 pathways of worship. We've got Messy Church, and then our morning service will eventually regather. And then we've got our online service, which is we are going to continue to have an entire full service online, even once we're regathering in the sanctuary. So that will always continue. We will always have that option. So if you get up on a Sunday and we've regathered and you feel like having church with your slippers and pancakes, you can, stay home and watch church and interact with church through our online service. And if you feel like getting dressed and you want to see people even at a social distance and with our mask on, there will be an opportunity to do that soon in the future. Everything, by the way, one thing we haven't mentioned is for Messy Church and for worship, once we do regather, we will have a reservation system. So people must make a reservation to attend Messy Church, and they must make a reservation once we begin to regather for regular worship. So I want you to be prepared for that, because that's how it will have to work, because we will have a limited attendance. If we need to have more than one morning service, I want you to know that we will plan for more than one. If we have 50 people that want to come, but we can only accommodate 30 or 40 because of our restrictions on the percentage of those who can gather, we will do more than one service. I'm committed to that. So just know that you won't get shut out because you can't make a reservation. There will be, a waiting list, and then we'll create another worship opportunity that will be available to you. So I want you to know we're going to make sure we meet those needs. Churches that I have talked to, though, are worshiping much smaller groups, churches of 200 that have done some regathering outdoors are really only worshiping at about 30 or 40 people. So I know a lot of people are still reluctant, and if they're in high-risk groups, even the outdoor worship is not necessarily the safest environment for them. So then our other worship pathway is a new worship concept that I'm sure you've heard of before, but it's House Church Ministries. I've met with one of the leaders in the House Church Network on the West Coast, and we've talked a couple of times and looked at how that might work for our church. House Church is very simple. It's gathering together in someone's backyard or someone's driveway, because right now we don't want House Church to meet inside. And it would be like having small group church at your home. So if someone wants to be that first house church, I'd love to hear from you. We're waiting for that first church we want. And so I'm putting that invitation out today, that if you want to be that first church, it would be probably about anywhere between 10 and 15 people that would gather at your house, in your backyard, or on your driveway. We would have some music. We are able to sing outside, which is great news. And we will have a short message. We will have a time of prayer for the world, but also for one another who are participating there. So the needs of the church and the needs of the world and the needs that are represented there. And we will have a scripture reading and communion. So communion will always be a part of house church. In the future, house church will include a fellowship meal. When we begin house church, we won't begin with a meal, we'll begin with communion. So that's the vision for that. And we will begin house church as soon as a household steps forward to open their home for that. And there still will be social distancing and wearing masks and that kind of thing when we're in house church, but we will be able to be together in worship in that way. So that's another worship pathway that we're looking forward to. I want to talk about the grant that Mike mentioned a moment ago. Brooke and I wrote a grant proposal for a MOPS group called MOPS and Movement to have MOPS at our church. And MOPS is Mothers of Preschoolers, and it's a long-standing organization that is very successful in churches. We've been wanting to start this for a long time, even before the pandemic, but MOPS, we met with their area director, Brooke and I did, online, of course, and they are doing wonderful ministry online for mothers. And so we have written up a proposal for a program of MOPS, and then at the same time, while the mothers are meeting online, there's a way to have the children have activity and so on like that. So I'm really excited about that possibility. And whether we get the grant or not, we will go ahead with MOPS. It just may be something we're going to have to find a way to work into our budget. We also will have ongoing support and learning groups like Debbie Guerra and Linda Robeson and others have helped resource. Debbie's done a beautiful job organizing our current COVID support group. And I know there's a waiting list for another one. And then we're looking at other groups like grief groups, like marriage support groups, even for those who are going through divorce or those who are facing family crisis. We're looking even at a mental health support group, a PFLAG group, which is parents and parents. I can't say families of lesbian and gay people. So that's what PFLAG is. And so we're looking at different groups like that to have online for now in the coming year. And then when we can, we'll have them in person. One of the other things that I'm really excited about is growing our digital and online ministries. So there are many ideas that have come to the fore for that. Daniel has come forward with an exciting idea about musical devotions that we can post online and that people can listen to when they're looking for a musical devotion. And so we're planning that for this coming year. Megan had an idea to do an online hymn sing. And so we're going to look at plugging that into our calendar this year and to do some other musical events where we can be a church that is as musical as we really are, but find ways to do that in a safe way during the pandemic. So many of those opportunities will be digital and online events, at least for the time being. So I'm really excited about this coming year. Our staff has been working really hard at reimagining how we can do ministry, even in the midst of the social distancing. And I'm so grateful to all of you for your support, your continued prayers, and all the emails and cards that we get in the office or that I get sent to me, just supporting our staff, supporting the work that our leadership is doing. Our leadership that are all volunteers are doing a fantastic job helping us continue to move forward. And I'm just very proud to be your pastor and to to watch us walk together through this difficult season. And there's a lot of joy in our midst, even in the midst of these difficult times.
Thank you, Pastor. You know, if you want to see an example of just one little thing that's happened during this pandemic, go to your website, go to our church's website, and see what it looks like now. Megan, you've done a phenomenal job keeping that up. Not only that, but providing support of creating things that we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about what the UMW is doing. It's just some phenomenal work. We've learned a lot during the pandemic, and we've been actually called as a staff, as strategic teams, as trustees, as all these folks that have constantly still been involved and working to think differently about how we've done our jobs in the past. Even think differently about how we move through 2021 when we still have so much uncertainty that gets just a little bit better focused each day, hopefully. But think about how much work it takes for Lynn and Mike and Megan and Jeremiah and Neil and all that to put together a service during the week when it's just being streamed on Sundays. Yeah, you know, it's odd to think of Lynn sitting back in her chair, in her easy chair, watching herself preach and think that there's not a lot of work going on there, but it's probably 4 to 5 times as much work, maybe more than that, Lynn, to actually put that together and coordinate that. So there's been a lot of work going on during this time that we've not been together, that we'll never see. We'll never see. We just get to reap the benefits, but we'll never ever see it. I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's meaningful on so many levels. Number one, to hear and to talk about what's going on, where we are today, where we think we're going to be, based on what we know now. It's good to see your faces. I have learned with my team at work that I would prefer to see them like this because I can look at everybody's face and I'm not sitting in a pew and there's people behind me that I may or may not see. So it's really quite a joy to be able to see everybody today. And you see me looking at my screen all over. I think I've got 40 something I'm seeing. But now it's time for your questions. So far, there have not been any questions posted in chat, but we will start with those that were sent in earlier. And as we start asking questions, if you have one, please either raise your hand. You can do that with the reactions button or type it in or just say, hey, I've got a question. Lynn, did you have anything else? Okay. All right. Let's ask the big one.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm just impressed with all the small groups that that Lynn talked about, and wondering if some way, I haven't seen them listed ever in eBreeze. Is there a way? I know it's being recorded, but I'm very visual. So is there a way to have them listed, the small groups that you have planned?
Dory, that's actually exactly one of the questions that we have answered. I'll maybe even expand the question and ask, how do we find out where we can get involved in the church altogether during this pandemic? Lynn?
Dory, what I'm thinking we will do is put out a survey with all the small groups listed to see who has interest in which topics, so that we have a better idea which ones we should launch first. Does that sound like a good idea?
Great. Thank you, Dory.
Good question.
Yes. Another big question that we have. So when are we going to all get back together? When are we going to be able to see each other as a whole congregation again? Lynn, are you raising your hand?
Is that for me?
No, I was just, you looked like you were raising your hand.
Nope.
So did you want to answer that question, Lynn? You want for me to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have Chuck and Mike. I don't have you on my screen, so I'm
Okay.
not always
So
catching.
the question,
happy to speak to that. When are we regathering? What I heard, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If I had my dream, and I'm going to risk saying this, but if I had my dream, we would have small services during the week of Christmas. That would be the soonest. So if I have my dream, that's what will happen. I don't know if we will be able to do that. So everything is very fluid right now, as you know. We're waiting to see if there's going to be a spike with the regathering of other churches and other groups. So, but what my plan and hope for is the week of Christmas. If it's not that, then before that time, we will set another possibility.
So
But what it would be is there would be a couple of services during the week of Christmas rather than necessarily on Christmas Eve, or maybe earlier on Christmas Eve. I think it will be hard in the dark to figure out how to social distance people. But my dream would be that we could do small services people would register for, and that we could have candlelight and silent night and a brief message together for Christmas. So that's my hope.
And that actually leads into another question that you've talked a good bit about, but if you want to relate it to why are some groups being allowed to use the church's facility already? I think that the answer is because they're following our protocol. And that's what would happen even in those smaller Advent services.
Well, and there's another less tangible reason. When we get together for worship, we are at our most familiar self, our most comfortable self, our most embracing self.
Mm-hmm.
And all the thoughts of restrictions go out the window.
Right.
So this is a proven fact. I mean, there are studies on this already in these 6 months, that when people go to worship, they just forget restrictions. It's okay, I can hug you, I trust you, I can take my mask off, that kind of stuff. Whereas when we go to a meeting or we go to a flu shot clinic, we're a little more willing to be restricted. But there's an emotional thing that happens when we go to worship that makes people more relaxed. And that's one of the reasons we're waiting.
So then based on that, when do you think we'll get together as a whole congregation? Really without those restrictions? When can we really gather again?
We're hearing that based on, it would be after the vaccine and after we know a vaccine's working. Like, when are all the restrictions going to go away?
Right.
Kat, do you want to speak to that? You're muted.
No, I'm okay now.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anticipating a vaccine anytime within the next few months. I mean, but and all I can do is follow what we read, with the CDC and everything. So but we can still come in with our capacity, the 25 or 50% capacity based on our space.
Right.
But you're talking 100%?
Yes.
The question was, just going back to where we were.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that within the next 4 or 6 months, unfortunately. But like I said, I can only watch what the medical field is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's my understanding that we're looking at next spring at the very earliest, and the end of next year is kind of the outside of that guess.
And then again, it's a personal preference. Do you feel comfortable with the first vaccine that comes out?
Right.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story.
Well, and even the first vaccine, and once we get the vaccine, it has to be widely available as well.
Mhm.
Right. And I guess what occurs to me with that, I feel like there might be some of you or people even that you might talk to in the congregation that just crushes their hope. It's like, we don't want to wait a lot longer. But I want to say, please, 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 if you are feeling a lack of hope, if you are feeling some despair, if you know anyone in the congregation or even a friend that you might think the church could support, please reach out to me. Please reach out to Kat or to Pastor Debbie, because we don't want you to sit alone with hopelessness or loneliness or despair. We are in this together, and this is a difficult waiting process. And we want you to remember the connection that we share. And so please, if this is hard news or any of the coming news is difficult, please come to us. I want to be with you in, the best of times and the most difficult times. And I am making personal visits, socially distanced, and so is Pastor Debbie. So, anyone who needs a visit or would like a pastoral visit or me to come pray with you, I'm here for you.
Thank you, Pastor. That is comforting, even for me. I mean, it just gets so tired of waiting. I know that one of the things that the Strategic Regathering team has been working on as well are ways to regather in small ways. We know it's not the full thing. We know we can't hug and pass the peace. We know those are the things that are going to be the last to come back. But we're trying to establish the different ways, like the potential of a house church and other volunteers, other opportunities to volunteer during the week and during this time together, so at least we can maintain that portion of our connection. And sometimes giving actually helps. Giving your time when you know what to do can actually help as well. We've got, like we've mentioned, we've got this incredible website, and Lynn, I think we're going to be ultimately posting a list of those opportunities on the website as well, so that we can to use it as a matter of communication. One last question that I have, Lynn, is what about children's ministry? Talk to us a little bit about that. There's Brooke may or may not be on. I haven't seen.
You've already heard me talk about MOPS, and we have weekly Sunday school lessons, including video lessons, as well as Brooke personally giving either craft lesson or a teaching lesson. So in addition to what you're seeing in worship, there are lessons on our Instagram, our children and family page on our Instagram. It's easier to do on Instagram than it is Facebook. And the majority of people, under 40 are on Instagram and not Facebook. And or our Snapchat, or there's so many other apps that they are connected into for social gathering online. So that is what's happening right now with our children's ministry. But the other plan, obviously, is the upcoming Messy Church. So Brooke is working with Barbara on that. Brooke is going to provide some music for Messy Church, so socially distanced music outside, so that the kids will be able to sing and do singing movement and music with Brooke. And it will be like a station. So it won't be everyone gathered together doing it. It'll be, households at a time. But, remember, Messy Church is not just for families with children. The Feenies know very well that Messy Church is for all ages. So I hope that when you feel comfortable doing it, you might register and consider being part of Messy Church.
So Lynn, we have a real good example of a group that is an integral part of our congregation, really rethinking how they do their ministry. And that's the UMW. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the UMW really should speak for themselves, but I, as the pastor of our church, and I just want to say how proud I am of our UMW. We have one of the largest, most active United Methodist women groups in our district and conference. So we should be so proud of them. And the amazing thing that they've done, and this I think was Kathy Scroggy's brainchild as I hear it, and Kathy kind of recruited the right people to get this moving. So Megan and Katerina, and I think even Carrie Kellogg, work together on getting all the photos taken and getting them posted online. And then Megan had to figure out how to do on our website this marketplace. And so you can go to our website, lbumc.org, and there's a tab at the top that says UMW Marketplace. And you click on that and you can go shopping. Isn't that exciting? I mean, you can go shopping. It's like going to Amazon, but
Yeah.
not. It's going to UMW Marketplace. So anytime, day or night, you can go shopping right on our website.
And can I add that everything you're shopping for has been handmade by our UMW women?
And 100% of the profits, I understand, go to missions,
Yes.
charities all over the community and the world.
And
So
then
shop-
it's hand delivered to you, like
And it's
in a
hand
couple days. I got a phone call and it was at my front door.
Wow,
It was amazing.
nice.
There's also an opportunity on there. One of the first things you see, there's an opportunity on there to give. So if you don't really see anything you want, or you just want to buy something and then give in addition to that, you can, a little envelope with a heart on it, you can actually donate to this.
Yeah.
It's a
There are
great-
There are the cutest stuffed animals that people have created. The lion and I don't know. I could go on and on. I browsed a little bit. I'm going to make my choices. But go and shop. Spend a lot of money on our UMW Marketplace. It'll go to missions.
Well,
I just want to say thank you for all of you talking about UMW and the marketplace. That team has done a wonderful job, and I so appreciate you bringing it up and letting the rest of the world know.
it's a shining example of how church can be done in a pandemic. You know, church is not stopped. I'm really proud that we've had the vision to go ahead and not just figure out how to get online, but how to go beyond that. We've learned a lot. We have learned a lot during this pandemic that we're going to continue to work with, and there is so much hope for the future. I think for me personally, if you don't hear anything else today, I want you to hear that this church is moving forward, not slowing down. I think it's speeding up, actually. But it's just so much opportunity going into 2021, and that's just incredible. Do we have any other questions from the congregation? Anything else?
Jean Ann has something.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, we keep talking about when we do return 25% or 100%. Is there an estimation of how many people that would be? What is 25% of our congregation?
Right now, as we've done the math, Jean Ann, that's about 40.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Yeah, that's a rough number, and that doesn't include Hilton Hall. We think we can probably seat another 10 individuals in Hilton Hall. But in terms of sanctuary, that's at least the number we're working with now.
Thank you. I just was curious. The other thing I wanted to say was this has just been a terrific lesson from God to us to have patience.
Yes,
I think that's a big thing we can draw from this experience.
absolutely.
Thank you for all your hard work. It's been really nice.
Well, thank you. When we do regather, whether it says 25% or 50%, since we still have to have the social gathering, as long as the 6-foot distance has to be maintained, the total capacity in the sanctuary is probably going to maintain at 40 persons total, no matter what the actual percentage is. But like Mike said, we're looking at Hilton Hall and how we can expand into that, and we'll see what else if we can. The 2 services, I think there's a lot that we're trying to position so that the maximum number of people can still come to church, even though it may not all be in the same space or the same service.
Thank you. I was just trying to visualize, how many people.
Yeah.
That's, thank you. That's good answer.
Mr.
Don,
Don?
I have a question to Dan. I'm going to be down at the church on Wednesday because I have to work on the, work with the contractors. They're going to change that fence out. Can you meet, can we meet on Wednesday at any time?
Yes, that's fine.
Because I'm going to be gone from the 19th to November 2nd. I'm going to be on the
Sure.
East Coast. So maybe I can help get started with those locks or whatever
You bet.
on Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, Wednesday's good.
Okay, anytime, you name the time, just text me the time.
I will.
Okay,
Randy, I think you had your hand up next, and then we'll get.
Yes, just real quickly, seeing Gina and more there. I miss seeing the Friday morning folders because they are excellent. It's a great way to get people together. But such a wonderful group. But can anyone talk to the manner in which handouts, any of the paper, any of those things, which I know is very awkward, but can anyone speak to that? I miss you, ladies.
Lynn?
Randy?
Part of the reopening plan that we responded to from the district and bishop's office required that we commit to no paper being handed. So the only paper we're allowed to manage is a waiver that everyone has to sign, but we've actually posted our waiver online. So people can sign the waiver online. If they happen to show up and they never sign the waiver online, we do have some print copies and we are allowed to have that. But no church is allowed to hand out anything paper, no handouts. And the hymnals and the Bibles will not be in the pews when people come back. We don't get rid of them. We have to set them aside till whenever we can reopen completely.
Thank
Does
you.
that-
Karen?
Minute.
There you go.
Oh, am I unmuted? Okay.
No, you're-
This, is it called small church or home church?
House church?
What is it?
House church?
House church, thank you. So if you volunteer your home once, I mean, are you volunteering for an ongoing thing? Are you volunteering for a one-time thing? Are the people participating coming from the congregation, existing congregation, or is it an outreach effort? Or I don't know much about that concept.
Thank you, Karen, so much, because all those details are so important to know, for everyone to know. And it looks like I should write an article on house church just to flesh that out, but I can give you answers to your questions right now. I'm just making myself a note. In concept, if you have house church, you have house church once a month at your house. Some house churches meet twice a month, but some house churches also rotate houses, sort of like our dinner and discussion groups do. The people coming to house church would be from the congregation, but they also have the concept that small group ministries call the open chair. And the open chair in this case is the invitation for anyone who's coming to invite a neighbor or a friend. And so if someone has a house church, the concept is that they, if they have neighbors they feel they could invite, that they would invite neighbors, so then neighbors would just walk on over. So it makes it very, very friendly, very hospitable, and more comfortable, because instead of asking your friend to drive across town, you're asking them to walk across the street. But it doesn't require that. This is the concept. So if someone wanted to open their home to house church one time, for people to get a feel for what it's like, and then whoever's there can kind of witness back, tell the story of what they experienced back to our congregation, I think that'd be wonderful, because it's a whole new concept for us. So if someone wanted to try it out once and we did it, and then people there were willing to give me some feedback and give our church feedback and tell people what they experienced, I think that would be great. So I guess I'm saying there's a lot of flexibility within this idea.
Karen, did that answer your question?
It was a good start, and thank you.
Excellent. Lynn, I think that might be a good idea to do a little expose and put it on the website or put it in the e-breeze or something. I think that could be well worthwhile.
And if anyone has any more specific questions on house church and you want to email me those questions, that'll help me kind of flesh out that article. Appreciate that.
Super. I saw another hand. I don't see it anymore. Okay, anyone else still with us that has further questions? We can stay as long as anyone has a question. Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been just extremely helpful for me. I've enjoyed hearing people. I enjoy hearing the questions. I enjoy the fellowship, this embodied fellowship that we have. But it's been great. Thank you so much for joining in today. Pastor Lynn, would you lead us in a closing prayer, please?
Yes, I'm gonna have two comments before I do that.
Okay.
One is, maybe it's our theme for next year to be able to reach people where they are. So I want us to be praying about that and meditating on that and lifting that up to God, that we will, bring love to life next year in 2021 by meeting people where they are. And that means people in our church and people outside our church. We're going to meet people where they are. Then the other thing, it's a little cheesy, but I kind of like the concept. This came from one of the church revisioning, pandemic revisioning leaders. And they said, when the world pushes stop, the church pushes play. So we have definitely done that. We have pushed play during this pandemic isolation, and we're still pushing play going into 2021. So I'm very excited about that. I'm honored to be your pastor, and I want to invite you to pray with me now. Gracious God, we thank you for the love that lives in this Zoom room and the love that lives between us, and your love and your grace and your mercy that connect us, God, to one another and to the world. So God, we pray that you would bless everything we've talked about today and be with us as we look to the coming year, that we might live out your love in the world. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you
Thanks.
again soon.
So happy to see everybody. Big
Thanks,
hugs.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.